You know, people said to me, "You are crazy for getting all these coaches in the same room together. What are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking it's about time we did. That's what I'm thinking." Talked to some of you guys coming in, and a lot of you don't ever remember us having a meeting like this and working together and getting here. There are so many things that are so important that you need to know. And over the last couple of years, I've realized that we have neglected our responsibility to each of you, to teach you, to let you know what's coming down the pike, to give you as much information as we can possibly give you. And I want to thank you very much for being here this morning. And at this time, you know, I want to introduce someone that I consider to be a friend. He avidly supports athletics in our county and represents the All Sports Association. And I know his passion for this. And I want to introduce to you Bernard Johnson.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? All right. We appreciate this opportunity. I think the good thing about coaches coming together is just that fact that coaches coming together and the camaraderie that you share as coaches. I mean, that's just, you know, a bond that just goes a long way. So congratulations to y'all on that and being here together. I want to thank Ms. Mary Beth and Mr. Andy Johnson for affording us the opportunity to be here in front of you. I want to introduce some folks we have with us. Chad Hamilton and I, of course, we on the All Sports Association. Of course, we have day jobs. I work at Gulf Power. He works at Warren Averett. So we do things outside of All Sports and FCA and all. And we also had the sheriff here with us, Mr. Larry Ashley. Why don't you give him a hand? He's here with us in support of the cause. Of course, he doesn't have his cape with him. He's got that in his truck out there, so he'll put that on in a minute. And then with us also, we have Ms. Michelle Carmichael, who's the executive director of the FCA. So I'm going to turn it now over to the hands of the sheriff. And thanks again for your time, and look forward to serving with you. Sheriff.
Morning, coaches. Thanks, Bernard. All Sports, Ms. Jackson giving us this opportunity to speak to you. They told me I only had 55 minutes. I'm sorry, 5. You guys know stats. You keep up with stats. Well, let me give you some stats, some serious stats. 72% of black children will be born out of wedlock, 47% of Hispanic, 29% of white, 19% of Asian. That's a whole bunch of children with one parent, no parent or grandparent raising them. And the only other parent that they're going to be looking at is you. You're going to be their mama or their daddy. And because there is so much in our country and in our community right now of guidance. And a river without banks is a swamp, stale and stagnant, going nowhere. You are the banks. You are the banks that give this river a direction, a purpose, and a place to flow. And they can go around obstacles and under obstacles and over obstacles and through obstacles with your guidance. You are the most powerful, influential component of a child's life because they want your encouragement. They want your approval. But these kids that come to school to be safe, to get a meal to eat, these kids that may not have a pair of underwear are not worried about a whole bunch of things except who's going to help me. And so certainly we want our kids to succeed. You are the people that make that happen. But I'll close with this. To whom much is given, much is required, and a lot is required of you. Are you ready for that test?
None of what you are going to hear today, and Ms. Jackson alluded to this, none of what you're going to hear today is new. None of it. It's all things that we should have been doing and you should all know. So as Andy and I and Brian, we look through things and we say, well, you know, this school's not doing this or that school's not doing that, and it's no one's fault but that it's not been known. And so we've organized this so that you will all know what we should be doing. And but nothing's new. And if you've been coaching here less than 10 years, a lot of this is going to sound new because I don't recall a training in the last 10 years going over some of this. But if you've been coaching here in this county for 10 years or more, a lot of this is going to be familiar. Oh yeah, I remember that. We've been trained on that before. So at this time, I want to turn the program over to Justin Harrison and Natalie Strappy. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. As they said, we are from the Florida High School Athletic Association, and we want to thank you all for having us. A couple of things, and just so you'll know what our background is and how long we've been involved with athletics. I'm Natalie Strappy. I am the Director of Compliance. This is Justin Harrison. Justin and I, we're going to call each other by first name. I hope that's okay. Justin and I have known each other for a very long time. We both worked at the same school, actually. Not why we ended up at the Florida High School Athletic Association together, but we worked at the same school. We both were in athletic administration. Personally, I'm an educator, and so is Justin, because we're at the same school. We're educators. We've been in athletic administration probably for the last 10 years. 12 years maybe, 12 years. And we've been at the Florida High School Athletic Association, him for probably about 6 or 7 years, and me for 4 years now. I'm a parent, of course, and my husband is an administrator in Elantra County at Newberry High School. And he was a coach for about 15 years, so I'm a coach's wife as well, which means I'm a coach. So we do come with a very diverse background. And so for us, this isn't just like for you, or hopefully for you, this isn't just a job. This isn't something that we do every day. We show up and we're just here to do our job. It's more than just a job for us. We've invested time, energy, and our career in athletics. So it is personal. It is our goal, and it is our mission to ensure that you understand not only what the rules are for student athletes across the state, but why they're important. So we've developed a little slideshow, and we'll try to stay with this as much as we can. But you gotta remember that we're educators. I was an AP teacher, and I taught AP, and then I taught non-AP. So I'm able to talk up here, and I'm able to talk down here. So we kind of get excited when we get in front of a group, and we're like, oh my goodness, back in the classroom again. So we get excited. All right, so our purpose and structure. Purpose and structure. I'm going to step away. If you can't hear me in the back, raise your hand and I'll step back. Can you hear me now? Gillis? Coach Gillis? Thank you. Sorry. She gave me the green light. All right, so the purpose and structure of the FHSAA. The purpose and structure, okay? The purpose, we all should have the same purpose, a united purpose that, while we're in athletics, our purpose. Basically, development, supervision, promotion, okay? Educational experience. This isn't just something that, you do just because, but it's with a purpose. And as a Florida High School Athletic Association, our goal is, with the rules that you all set as a structure, as a community, as membership, our goal is to help enforce and to help ensure everybody plays by the same rules. Everybody has that equitable chance for competition. Everybody has that equitable chance for participation, okay? Without any recruiting, without any enticing, to ensure everybody is safe. The purpose, the same thing that you do as an educator or as a coach. So the structure, it's important that you understand the structure, and I'm going to give a little commercial. I'm going to give a commercial. Every year we go out, we have compliance seminars, okay? And our compliance seminars, they're in 2 different sections of the state every year. This year they're in section 1 and 3. Last year they were in section 2 and 4. So Tallahassee this year, and Sebastian River High School also. And we say the same thing every year because it's important for you to understand that as a staff, Justin and I didn't come up with any rules that you have today. We're here to enforce them. We're here to ensure that everybody plays by the same rules and everybody follows the same rules, but we didn't come up with any rules that you have today. Instead, you all as a membership have. Maybe not you personally, but your athletic director or your superintendent or your principal. You all as a membership develop these rules. And so therefore, our goal today is to help you understand what the rules are. So just like in life and with everything, you may not like all the rules, but the rules are the rules. And in order for all of us to have a fair chance, we got to follow the rules. So if you don't like a rule, that's fine. There is a method for changing it. We're not opposed to it. There is a method for changing it. Today just isn't the method. Okay, so Coach Gillis, you ensured that everybody in the back understood that. Okay? So today is not the method for changing the rules. It's the method for understanding the rules. Okay? Did you have something to say about the structure? Your sports committees?
What did you want to talk more about, how the committees work and stuff?
Well, up here, basically what it says, you have the representative assembly, and they're the ones that make the bylaws. So in your handbook, if you have a handbook, and if you look at the handbook is divided into 3 different colors. I don't know if you can see that, but it's divided into white, green, and yellow. In the white section are your bylaws. These are the bylaws. That's the 67 members on the representative assembly, your athletic directors, your principals. These are the people, your superintendents. These are the people that come together and they approve, or basically, they approve the bylaws, and they're the ones that are in control of the bylaws. In the green section are your policies. The policies are approved by the board of directors. 16 members are on the board of directors. And then in the yellow section are the administrative procedures. The administrative procedures are basically assistance to help you understand how the application of the bylaws and the policies are administered by staff. Okay, so that's how the handbook is broken up.
And just to interject, first of all, hello everybody, good morning, we thank you for being here. What I was doing when she was going over the handbook, for those who do not have the handbook, it is available online. You mentioned there, she mentioned the bylaws. You see you can do the complete handbook. It's got the bylaws, policies, administrative procedures, but I just wanted to kind of show, if you don't necessarily have a printout of it, you can print it out. It's always online as well. Just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, so we are an administrative staff at the Florida High School Athletic Association of about 28 people. And then we also have a public liaison advisory committee that's comprised of community members, not just Gainesville, but state of Florida community members, a parent, a student, and those people come together to take the public's input. And they make suggestions, or they suggest changes on behalf of the public, on behalf of your community members and your parents. And then you have FHSAA, which is the Florida Association for Coaches, and then FHSAA for athletic administrators. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the bylaws. So we'll go through the bylaws, we'll go through the policies, and we'll discuss this with you. We'll explain it to you, we'll explain to you how it works.
Natalie, if I could, for the benefit of our middle schools
Sure.
that are here.
I didn't know where that came from.
A voice from afar. But for the benefit of our middle schools that are here, we do have what we call in Okaloosa County MSAC, our Middle School Athletic Conference.
Okay.
We follow and use FHSAA guidelines, policies, and procedures as a guide. Very seldom do we stray. There are some times that we do interpret a policy for our advantage for our kids. But the reason that you middle school folks are here is to hear what they're saying, to know that we have a middle school athletic conference here. It is headed up by your middle school principals, and if there's ever a question, a concern, something that you have, direct that to your athletic director, if not your principal, so that it can be discussed just like they're talking about here in conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So let's look at where it starts. Where does eligibility start? How is a student determined eligible? Okay, so this is the beginning of it all. When you look at Bylaw 9.2, this is where eligibility starts. And the bylaw basically says wherever a student starts the first day of school, or wherever a student starts the first day of practice, whichever comes first. As far as in when the school year starts, when the athletic year starts, whichever comes first. So, for example, football. If you have a student that shows up on the first day of practice for football, August 4th or whenever, August 5th next year, whenever it is, then that student pretty much locks himself into that school. That's where he or she is eligible. If a student doesn't play a fall sport and they show up on the first day of school, August 18th, that's where a student is eligible, okay? Now, understand, for the Florida High School Athletic Association, you have public, you have private, you have virtual, homeschool, charter school. We have home ed cooperatives. I mean, we have a lot of different types of students. So with that being said, there's little that you will find in the red handbook that will vary between public and private. So for us, wherever a student starts the first day of school, if you all as a school district or as a school on the first day of school or on the first day of practice said that this student can attend this school based on whomever he or she lives with, and they're being honest, that's the key word, they gotta be honest. They're being honest and you all accept them as a student, then technically they're eligible, okay? And there's a reason I said that. The reason I said that was there's an old adage or an old feeling that, and it used to be this way. It used to be this way. If you're not living with that same person for the last 365 days, then you can't play or you can't participate. Well, currently, even in state statute, wherever you show up on the first day of school or the first day of practice, that's where you're eligible. That rule is accurate for your district if that's how your district applies it. But as far as in the Florida High School Athletic Association, if your district says the student can attend this school, the student can play, then wherever they show up first day of practice is where they're eligible. But the key thing is they gotta tell the truth. You can't live with granddaddy, but you're going over to Niceville. Sorry, I saw it on the shirt. I can't see far enough to see the black. What's the black one? What's this guy? What's the school? I shouldn't have said it. Well, you didn't tell me the key words, not to say it.
Excuse the interruption, but to take advantage of this opportunity, would the driver of Big Yellow School Bus 9117 please report to the lobby you're parked illegally? The driver of Big Yellow School Bus 9117.
I think they found him. Okay, back on track. They didn't tell you were going to have a little bit of fun today, did they? All right, so the key, and no offense, I don't know many of your schools. I deal with a lot of schools. I deal with 800 schools, so no offense to anybody in particular, so don't take offense. But listen up. The guy in the yellow, right here in the yellow in the middle. There we go. I got your attention from saying yellow. All right, so listen up. The key is they have to tell the truth. You can't falsify your information and live with one person, put on record that you're living with one person, but you want to attend another school. Not unless you have a waiver that's been approved by your district. Not unless your district has approved it. Okay? So that's the key to where eligibility starts. You got to be honest.
Now, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm going to interject here. She mentioned, unless your district has any other rules, according to FHSAA, these are the rules. Our attendance waiver states that we're going to follow the FHSAA rules. We have no additional rules above the FHSAA rules. So we are following their rules, and we have no rules over and above those.
Okay.
So just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. And that is true. One of our bylaws said that a school district, they can have stricter rules when it comes to our bylaws. And some school districts have stricter rules. Okay? So that's where eligibility starts. Wherever you show up on the first day of school or the first day of practice. That's where it starts. You got some conditions though that you got to be aware of. Okay, you have some conditions that you have to be aware of that can impact eligibility, even if you show up on the first day of school or the first day of practice and you say, my kids should be eligible because that's what you said. But you have some conditions to be aware of, okay? Two major conditions. You have 924, which is previous contact, 925, relocation of the coach. 924, 925, none of this is new. Might be to you, but none of it is new. If you didn't do it right last year, we'll just get it right this year. Don't raise your hand, Gillis. I don't need to know if you didn't do it right. Not my business right now. That's not why I'm here. I know it's the only name I know. I see this guy's shirt and I ruffle feathers here. I don't know anybody else. All I know is Gillis. Hicks? Who's Hicks? Oh, goodness, that's not the same guy. I don't want to know the same guy's name. Coach Hicks, that's it for you today. All right, so I'm just going to stick with Gillis. That's all I got. Sorry, Gillis. All right, so 924-925. 924-925. 924, previous contact. If you remember the old rule basically said if you had contact within the last 365 days, this is for a non-school team. Non-school team, baseball, AAU basketball, USSSA, whatever it is that your kids do outside of your school. If they have contact with a coach from another school, so we have Fort Walton Beach. Where's Fort Walton Beach High School's athletic director? That's okay, you can raise your hand. You're like, I guess I'm here. All right, we have Fort Walton Beach High School and Pryor High School? Middle school. Give me another high school. Okaloosa High School. Give me the guy here in the black. Choctaw. He's sitting here quiet. He knows I'm looking for a school name, and he's like putting his head down. He's writing. He's that kid that you have in the back that you're like, come on, Tony, come on up to the front. This is Tony. All right. Fort Walton Beach and Choctaw High School. All right. So if you have a kid that's at Fort Walton Beach, he is attending Fort Walton Beach High School, but he's participating with the baseball coach at Choctaw High School, okay? That's not a problem. That's not an issue. Not an issue at all. The issue is when the kid that's attending Fort Walton Beach High School decides he wants to transfer to Choctaw High School. That's when it becomes a question. That's when it becomes a question. That's when you all start calling us anonymously. That's when the mamas and the daddies and the brothers and the cousins start calling us saying they're recruiting, okay? So the issue is when the kid decides to transfer to the school where his coach from the non-school team is a representative or a coach. That's when the issue comes to play. Now, the old rule would say, if that happened, the kid is ineligible for 365 days, all sports. Can't play at all. The new rule, previous contact, says something a little different. I broke it down here for you because all of this, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. This is it really simple. The new rule says, now I can get to the middle school, Pryor Middle School. If this kid, while he was at Pryor Middle School, was participating with the coach from Choctaw High School. Pryor ends at 8th grade? Yes. It ends at 8th grade. And the kid at Pryor Middle School or at a middle school, if it's a terminal grade, terminal meaning it ends, they gotta go somewhere. You can't come back, you gotta go somewhere. If it's a terminal grade, if the student goes to their non-school coach's school, then the kid is eligible. The kid is eligible because he or she is leaving a terminal grade. Some of you nod, some of you shake. I understand both sides. But the kid is eligible. He or she is leaving a terminal grade. So we got that, that's the first one. The second one. If the kid is not leaving your terminal grade, that could mean high school, 9th, 10th, 11th. That could mean 6th through 12. It's not a terminal grade until 12th grade. If the kid is not leaving a terminal grade, he's at Fort Walton Beach and he transfers over to Choctaw, he's in the 9th grade going to the 10th, then the kid is eligible for sub-varsity in that sport, but varsity in all the other sports. Sub-varsity in baseball, but can play varsity in all the other sports for that school year. Okay? The third one. This is what I suggest to my husband, because I told you he's an administrator. And this is what I suggest to my husband. And this is me being a hard administrator myself, because I do believe that we all have to follow rules, and you don't follow rules, and there should be some type of consequence. So the third option is the coach doesn't coach for 365 days. And this is the only reason I support this rule. If the coach, because there's a form, the form is called the GA6. G is in girl, A is in apple, 6 is in Could be your lucky number. I don't know. GA6. This form basically says, Billy, you do not attend my school. However, you are playing for me on my non-school team. You and your mom need to sign this form, and you need to understand if you decide to transfer, there may be an eligibility impact. Maybe. We don't know. But you need to sign this form saying that I explained it to you. So then if Billy decides to transfer to Choctaw, Billy, you transferred and you understood that there could be an eligibility impact. Coach, is not on you anymore because you did your job. You did your due diligence. But at that point where the coach doesn't do their due diligence, that's when the third option comes into play. And as an administrator, you have that option to choose. Coach, you sit out for 365 days, or kid, you play subvarsity for 365 days or for the school year. So those are your three options with non-school teams. Those are the three things that could happen with non-school teams depending on the kid's situation. The second one is 925. This is relocation of the coach. Relocation of the coach. I don't know how many coaches you have moving from school to school. In Alachua County, it happens sometimes. Relocation of the coach is pretty common, and it has the same, or if not the same, similar impacts. The only difference is there isn't a GA6 form. There isn't a GA6 form for relocation of the coach. And if a kid is transferring and it's not a terminal grade, then whatever sports that coach coaches at the new school, the kid has to play subvarsity. Whatever sports the coach is affiliated with at the new school. So if a coach coaches football and baseball, then it's subvarsity for the kid for football and baseball. Okay? Now, what if a student transfers? After the first day of school or after the first day of football, volleyball practice, golf practice, the student decides, I want to go to a new school. Then what happens? What's the student's eligibility? You have transfer regulations. There are 6 transfer regulations that you have. And a student could be eligible at their new school, but they have to be eligible by one of the 6 transfer regulations, okay? And this is a part of our webpage on the eligibility and compliance webpage, and it explains it all for you. And actually, when you go on this webpage, and if you click on each one of these blue buttons, it'll explain to you what that transfer is or what type of transfer that is. So the 6 real quick, I'm short on time because Justin still has to get up and talk, so I'm short on time, but I'll do the best I can real quick. All right, so you have 6 transfer options. 6 transfer options. Transferring before the start of the sports season. What's considered the start of the sports season? When is the first official day that you can go out for the sports season? When you can have tryouts in your orange calendar, whenever that first official day is. If the student transfers to the new school before the start of the sports season, then the school and school district determines the eligibility for that student. The school and school district determines the eligibility for that student. That's the first one. The second one, transferring within the first 20 days. If a student transfers within the first 20 days of school, doesn't participate at the old school, the student could be eligible at his new school, fully eligible. The next one, reassignment by the school board. Now there's a key to this part. Reassignment by the school board. That's without the parent or the student requesting it. So if Johnny's mama gets upset because she doesn't like that you put her kid on JV, if she requests to be transferred to a new school, that doesn't mean that Johnny's going to be eligible because the school board said okay, because the parent requested it. This is in cases as if you have a school that is over capacity and you need to level out the schools a little bit. So you got to transfer 10 kids here and 10 kids there. The kid didn't request it, the parent didn't request it, the school board made the decision. The kid is eligible. The next one is a full and complete move. What is a full and complete move? A full and complete move. Full and complete move is full and it's complete. It's as full and complete as you can get. If at any point, when Billy or Willie or whomever, we'll call him Willie in this example. If Willie and his family moves to a new home, but Willie or a family member can go back to the old home, it may not be full and complete. Full and complete means that everybody that lived with Willie moved out of the home. Moved out of the home. Okay? Can't go back, your lease is up, you sold it, you rented it, whatever it is, you turned off the utilities, you transferred everything to this new place. That's considered full and complete. Okay? Necessary relocation. Somebody dies. A kid is in foster care. Something happens that requires the move. Okay? There is an exception for that. And then the last one is marriage. Not for you, but for the kid. It is old, I know, doesn't happen that much anymore, but you leave it in there because it might happen. Kid might get married and want to move with their spouse. Now, there's a key to all of this. And I'll discuss some of this later when we come to forms, but there's a key to all of this. These are the 6 conditions that you can determine a student eligible. You can determine that student eligible. Okay? You don't have to call us. You don't have to send in a form to us. If the student moves, if there's a new student that's enrolled in your school, and you're sure, I guess that's the other key, you're sure that the student meets one of these, you can determine their eligibility. So, we're going to move on to recruiting. Those are your most, in bylaw 9.2 through 9.8, those are your most basic and your hot topic issues. Of course, you have age. You have age. You can't be older than 19.9 currently. 19.9 currently, and then the new rule is 19. The new rule is 19. That started with the 14-15 school year with the incoming freshmen. The new rule is 19, okay? And then you have to have a 2.0. You have to have a 2.0 at the beginning or at the end, I guess you could say, of every semester. Conclusion of every semester, 2.0. That's with all courses included. And then, of course, you can't play for more than 4 years consecutive. You have eligibility for 4 years consecutively. No red shirt year, a year you took off, your kid took off because they didn't want to play. It's 4 years consecutively. And we'll get into a little bit of that later when we look at the legislative stuff. Okay, so let's look at, go ahead,
yeah,
Mr.
I
Nick.
need to interrupt again. And I'm talking high schools here because we have an MSAC for middle schools. Y'all are going to determine that eligibility. So this is only for high schools. Each school administration, each school athletic director. So this information is for you to determine is that child eligible or not. This is a school-based decision. If you have questions, you have a question and you go, hey, I don't know. Call Brian Humphrey, call Andy Johnson, and let's, before you say that or deem that child eligible, get with one of these guys and let them double check. Let's make sure if we have a question and it's a gray area, let's make sure that eligibility before that child is allowed to participate, because I want to protect you guys and your schools. So that's what I was saying earlier when we began. This is very important, and this is how it is today. Your school, your principal, your athletic director, you're held accountable for this. This has to be done right. If you have a situation and you go, I don't know if this is right, call Andy. There we go. If you determine that it is right to make a mistake, you're accountable for that mistake. Mm-hmm. So check first, please, with us. Thank you.
Okay, so transfers only happen during the school year between day 1 and 180, or whenever they first start and they're determined eligible at that sport that begins in the fall, then the transfer occurs, okay? So that's when transfers occur. Now coming back on what he said, that's the purpose, and like I said, we'll go over in the forms later, of the EL10. You know, if you don't know and you need to know or you don't know for sure, that's when you speak with your athletic director, and your athletic director speaks with either Mr. Johnson or Mr. Humphrey or somebody in the athletic office, or you can contact us. So let's look at coaching. Let's look at recruiting, let's look at impermissible benefits and improper contact. Coaching, impermissible benefits, recruiting, improper contact, it is something that happens in every county. It's something that happens in every county. And it's something that will probably continue to happen until we all get on the same page of why we coach. Why do you coach? We were I'll tell you a quick story. I wish I could move around a bit, but I'll tell you a quick story. We were out in another county earlier this school year, a little north of you, at the very tip, out in another county dealing, oh, thank you. Okay. So we were out in another county at the very tip of Florida. And we're dealing with a situation that involved some kids and a coach. And it was a very hot situation, very hot situation. So what we did as a staff is we went up and we gave a long workshop. We did a long workshop with the coaches and the athletic directors. And then we came back that evening and we did a workshop with the parents, okay? And the situation was you had a coach, and I'm gonna fudge it a little bit so you don't know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you will know, some of you won't. If you don't know, if you do know, don't tell your neighbor. Just let them be clueless. So it was a coach, you had a coach and you had kids, and this sport was basketball. And you had kids, about 6, 7 kids that transferred from one school and all ended up at the new school. All ended up at school B. They left school A, and actually, I want to say 3 of the kids were from school A, 2 of the kids were from school C, and another kid was from school D. But all these kids ended up at the same school within the same school year. And when I say they were game changers, I mean they were game changers. It wasn't like they were just, you know, kids to be on the team and kids who just wanted to play a sport. They were truly game changers. So it definitely made the news. And it definitely was something that everybody took notice of. So it's something everybody took notice of. So anyways, the coach said he didn't do anything wrong. He was a pretty dynamic coach, I guess you can say. But he said he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't have any issues. So the story goes, the kids came to the coach's school and just happened to go near the coach's office. Happened to find the coach's office. And the coach's office is like tucked in the corner somewhere. I mean, it's not like it's, you walk into the school, it's the first door you see. It's like tucked in the corner, you gotta go left, and you gotta take a right, and then you gotta take a hard, sharp left again. It was tucked away in the corner. And they just happened to end up at the coach's office and say, hey, we want to transfer to this school. How do we do it? Them and their parent. And the coach said, well, you know what? Let me walk you back to the front office. I'm going to walk you to the administration building, and you need to see our assistant principal or our principal or registrar or whomever it was. You got to go see that person. So the coach and the kid began to walk. Coach and the kid began to walk. And as the coach and the kid begin to walk, the coach starts talking to the kid and says, man, you look great. Woo, you got a good body on you. And they, you know, what sports do you play? Oh, I run track. You do? Oh, and you play football. Okay, well, that's good. Well, man, I wish you well, and yada, yada, yada. What's your 40 time? Just, just chit-chatting. Told him his 40 time. Man, oh, you see that plaque up there? That kid right there, he now goes to some D1 school, let's say University of Florida. He now goes to Florida. He was a track kid just like you. Yeah, man, I coached him. I got him to University of Florida. And now he's a D1 athlete. Yeah, he's probably going to go to the league one day. So they continue to walk as he's walking him to the office to go and register for the school. And then he's talking to the parent, yeah, I care about these kids. And I had like 11 seniors last year. I got 10 of them in school. Yeah, that's my record. I get at least 75% of my kids in school. So just so happened you had 6, 7 kids, went through the same situation and ended up at this school. And it was just all because. We don't know how it happened, it just all was because, and every parent had the same story, and the coach had the same story, and it kind of changed at the end. So the question was this improper? And what was improper about it? Was it improper? What was improper about it? What's improper about a coach talking to a kid that doesn't attend that coach's school and it's about athletics? What's improper about it? So we're going through this and we have this long workshop and we're speaking to coaches and You know, it's a couple teachers scattered out there. And this coach, like I said, the man was dynamic. The man could sell you a used car and the car wouldn't have any tires, probably could be up with no engine, and you would think that I can make it work. I can get it to roll. You're right, coach, I can. He was just that good of a coach. So this teacher, and she was retiring, so I think this is why she felt the need and she felt comfortable with sharing how she truly felt. She got up within the presentation. I was presenting. It was on recruiting, And she got up and she said, she raised her hand and she said, well, Miss Strappy, I just want to know what's wrong with recruiting. I don't see the issue with recruiting. We recruit for academics. Why shouldn't coaches be allowed to recruit for a sport? I think they should be allowed to recruit for a sport. And I don't see what this coach did was wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Now we have kids that are coming here, and it's going to make all the other coaches at every other school better because our coach recruits for athletics. And so at that point, I was already warmed up. Like I wasn't cold. I wasn't fresh out the box. I've been talking for a while, and she totally caught me off guard. So I think I took off my administrator hat, and my mama hat came on, and my school administrator hat came on, and it was like my head did a 360. And I said, well, ma'am, if you think about what you just said, recruiting is okay for athletics, and why shouldn't it happen? Let's see, why shouldn't it happen? Why shouldn't we recruit for athletics? How many kids do you have on a team? On a basketball team, you may have 15. On a football team, you may have, I don't know, 60 if you're lucky. Most schools 40, 50, however many. How many kids can play on a football field at one time? You have 11 from your side and 11 from their side. So only 11 of your kids can play at one time. And if you're lucky, they don't have to go two ways or both ways. So 22 kids play, maybe 30, okay? So if you got 30, you got 20 more that may not see the light of day on the field, or may get a touch here or there. So I said, let's really think about why shouldn't we recruit just for athletics? I had a video to show you, but it didn't work. So I have a son. My son is 7. I was telling Justin about my son. My son is 7. And my son started playing flag football. You'll like this, coaches. My son started playing flag football when he was like 5. He started playing golf when he was 4. You know, my husband and I, we're competitive people. We're those passionate parents. So he started playing golf at 4, flag football at 5, and the kid is flat out amazing on the flag football field. Amazing. I mean, this kid will run your kid down. That's how confident. Grab his flag and say yes, okay? So he's a great kid on the flag football field. This school year, some of his friends, one of his best friends, decided to play tackle football. And me as a mom, I love athletics, but I don't love tackle football for my kid. I love it for everybody else's kid, but not for my kid. It's just not my thing. I just love watching it. And so he says, Mommy, I want to play tackle football. And my husband, he played high school, he played college, he played a bit. And he says, well, he's an good old boy. Let the boy go out and play. What's the issue? So I said, okay, we'll see. We'll let him go and play. Now, he went out there, and when he first started, there was no pads. It was just warm up, and they were all running around. And he was like, yeah, you see it. I broke some kids off today. Kid was amazing. Potential was amazing. Attitude was amazing. And so we were at the compliance seminar in Miami. That was our first compliance seminar, or second compliance seminar. And he had his first game. He calls me. He's 7. He says, Mommy, I understand the difference between tackle and flag football. And I said, okay, buddy. Well, what's the difference? He said, tackle hurts. Tackle hurts a lot. And so I said, okay, well, do you want to play still? And we have a rule, like most of you do. You start it, you finish it. I don't care if you don't like it. You started it, you're going to finish it. And so in Little League football, I learned a lot. Every kid has to have 4 minimum plays. 4 minimum. So the coach who coaches the team, I know him, we went to school together, he's a friend of mine, he's a great guy. He said, Nat, don't worry about it. I'm going to get the kid in there. He's going to get his 4 minimum. And I'm saying to myself, that's required, but that's cool. He's going to play. He's going to play. Can you hear me, Coach Gillis? Okay. So, season goes on. This is a travel football league. So every other weekend we're traveling to Jacksonville. It's with the St. John's Youth or whatever it is. Every other weekend. And my kid gets 4 minimum. And there were times when he could have got 5, or he could have got 6, but he tapped out at 4. Like he was tracking 4, and he tapped out at 4. He's like, Coach, I got my 4, I got my 4. And he would run back out. And so, you know, my husband and I are passionate people. My husband was coaching him. My husband's he's an old school football coach. So, you know, he's coaching kids and all of that, you know, testosterone and all that good stuff. And so my husband, he's out there, he's coaching, he's yelling, doing all the fancy stuff, all the tricks. And he looks back, and my son, as well as the other third string kids, are over on the sideline singing Frozen. Everybody has a song, and I mean they're into it to the point where they're like, "Hey, dude, that's my part. That's my part." And so everybody has a part to the Frozen song, and this goes on through the whole season. It doesn't matter if we're at home or in Jacksonville. My kid is on the ground spinning his helmet, and he's like, 360, right here. Look at this helmet spin, 360. And he's spinning the helmet. He's singing Frozen. He made one tackle. I'll give him that. And after the game, I said, "Oh my God, buddy, you made a tackle. That's great." He's like, "No, I didn't. That kid ran into me. I didn't make a tackle." So he's just not a tackle football player at all, but he loves playing. And it's because of the kids. It's because of the bond. It's because of the camaraderie. So when this teacher asked me this, I'm going through this football season with my son, and he's a participant on the team. And so she asked me, "What's wrong with recruiting?" And I'm like, oh my God, she just touched the wrong button and the wrong nerve. And so I said, "Well, ma'am, considering that if you recruit a kid, or maybe 5 kids, this situation 6 kids, let's say you recruit 6 kids, you still have, if you have a roster of 60 or a roster of 50, you still have another 54 kids on the team. What does it say to all the other kids that you didn't recruit, that just showed up? What does it say to them? You went out and recruited these 6 players, but what about everybody else in the room? So why are you really doing this? Why are you really coaching? Is it coaching to win for these 6 kids? Or is it coaching for all 60 kids, or all 15, or all 20, or however many on your squad? That's the question that you have to ask and you have to know. Me as a parent who has a kid that just wants to be involved, why should he feel any lesser or feel any less important than these 6 kids that you went out and recruited? Why should he have to feel like he's not important because he wasn't recruited? And he just showed up because he wanted to play. This is the school that he attends. He showed up. He wanted to play. So that's the question. Why do you coach? Why do you coach? It can't be for the money. I mean, unless y'all pay some good money, I can have my cousin come up here. We can move tomorrow. Okay? So it can't be for the money. In Alachua County, it's not for the money. It's not for the money. So it can't be for the money. Is it to win? Is it to win? You can't win everything, so you're going to lose at some point. You're going to lose at some point. If it's truly about the kids, then is recruiting a good thing if it doesn't happen to everybody. And if you think about the kids that you're coaching, you have 15, 20 kids on a team. If you have 60 kids on a team, how many of your kids are D1, D2, D3 prospects? How many of your kids are going to go to college for the sport that they're playing for you? And if you can't truly say 75% of your kids every year go to college, 80%, 90%, 100% of your kids go to college for athletics, then is recruiting really important for the kid? For all of them, not just one, but for all of them. Okay? So, with recruiting, that's what we have to look at. Why do we coach first? Then let's see how recruiting is applied and if it should be applied. Now, of course, recruiting, everybody doesn't understand what recruiting is. But recruiting is encouraging, it's enticing, it's urging, it's promoting your athletic program. It's asking a kid to come and play for you just for the athletic purposes. Nothing else, based on solely athletics, and you may just slide in a couple of academic stuff because it feels to it. But it's really for athletics. That's what recruiting is. So, social media is like this new phenomenon. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how much social media plays into recruiting now. experienced a lot of stuff. We've grown a lot as an association just trying to keep up with social media and how kids, coaches, parents use social media to recruit other kids. This is a situation, and I can put all of the text up there, but this kid left his school and went to his new school. He was a football player in this situation. And at his new school, he was getting the love, and he was getting the shine and the glory and all that good stuff. So he texts his friend from his old school and says, hey buddy, I'm over here and this coach loves me. He's gonna get me in front of college coaches. He's gonna make sure I get recruited. You should come with me. You should come over here too. Because they're not showing you love at your school now currently. You should come. I talked to my coach. We can have a spot for you as a running back. Our running back is going to graduate, so we got an open spot. You should come over here and be a running back for us. Is that encouraging? Is that enticing? Is that leading? And is it for athletic purposes? I believe yes is the answer to all of those questions. In this situation, the kid shared it with his athletic director, and then the athletic director contacted us. But that is recruiting. At its finest and at its purest moment, that is recruiting. And then we've even seen some things that are even new. Hopefully you've never seen this flyer, because this is from a school. So if you have, don't do this. This is bad. This is a bad example. And it's actually it's crafty, but it's something that you shouldn't do. So don't go home and create this type of program. This workshop, Huddle and Heels, or it's a clinic that they were going to have. And this wasn't their intention, so I will give them this. I'm glad I'm on video because I just said it was not their intention. But it can be used as a recruiting tool. And basically what the school decided that they were going to do was to have a clinic during the school year, during spring football practice. You'll love this one too. During spring football practice, they were going to have a clinic. But the clinic was going to be for the moms. And we're going to teach them football. We're going to teach them all about football, and we're going to have them come to the school. As the head coach, I'm going to teach them, me and my coaching staff are going to teach them all about football. Just the moms. And not the moms from my school, but the moms from anywhere, from the county. Any mom that wants to sign up, she can come. And then, after we teach them football, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take them out to the football field and let them watch spring practice. And we're going to let the kids meet them, and we're going to let them understand how football goes, what the football game is all about. So, I'm a history teacher. So as a history teacher, you tell a lot of stories. So I had a story in my mind. My story went so simple as, okay, you teach the mom all about football, and you say that these are our positions on our football team. And you see this here, we got 2 deep in the running back category. 2, and this one of them is graduating. So now we got an open spot for a running back. See the quarterbacks right now, we don't have a starting quarterback. That's right, you got to look for them. Then we have line. So I envisioned that they would just go down the line. This is not what they told me, and I didn't call and ask. I'm a history teacher. I made it up. So I envisioned they would go down the line, go through each category, and put out there what we're looking for. And then we're going to take you out to the field so you can see our football team and you can see our facilities. That's pretty crafty. I'm pretty sure, I want to say it wasn't intentional, but that's a pretty crafty way to recruit. Not a kid, but a parent who has a kid that can come to your school next year. Okay? So recruiting, it's there. It's something that you shouldn't do, you can't do, but it is there. Now, the 2 different types that go in along with recruiting, you have improper contact and impermissible benefits. And this is where a lot of people don't understand when there's an issue. Most people understand recruiting that you shouldn't go to a kid and say, come to my school to play soccer. But what's improper contact and what's impermissible benefits? Improper contact. It's an effort to pressure, urge, or entice a student to a different school. The basis of recruiting. At what point is it improper contact? At what point you speaking to a student is it improper contact? If the student does not attend your school, the red part at the bottom, If the student does not attend your school, actually it's on the next slide. If they don't attend your school, it's not summertime. Don't attend your school, it's not summertime. They're attending another school, it's during the school year. A student comes to you, or either you're interacting with a student. If at any point you begin to speak about athletics and encourage a student to come to your school, that's improper. Okay? I was speaking to an administrator, I told Mr. Humphrey about this yesterday, I think before I left, and he was telling me, just casually, just chit-chatting, that his basketball coach was going over to the middle school, because the middle school was right across the street, and his basketball coach, girls basketball coach, was going over to the middle school to watch the girls basketball team at the middle school to see what type of prospects he would have for next year. And I said, I'm sorry, say that again? He's doing what? He's like, yeah, he's going over there, he's checking out the middle school girls for the high school team for next year. You know, just checking them out to see who's coming over. And I said, okay, well, what else does he do? You know, I figured I might as well milk it if he's just open, he wants to tell me everything. But what else does he do? Well, you know, he talks to them after the game, and he tells them, good game, he introduces himself, I'm from this school, I'm the head coach, girls basketball coach at this school. Good game, man, I can't wait to see you play again, I can't wait to see you next year. And I said, well, you realize that's improper. And he said, well, why is that improper? What's the issue? There's zones in my school. Zone. There's zones in my school. And I said, well, let me ask you this. How many kids at your school, at your small school, because I think it's like 600 or something, how many kids at your school attend your school that are not zoned? How many kids attend your school that are not zoned? And he said, well, we got quite a few. I said, so does this middle school girl have to come to your school, or does she have another option? Could she go to another public school? Could she go to a private school? Could she go to a charter school? Does she have to come to your school? And he said, oh, I didn't think about it like that. I said, okay, that's the issue. That's improper. A kid does not have to come to your school just because they're zoned. They can choose to go to another school. They can get a waiver to go to another school. They can choose to go to a private school. They can choose to go to a charter school. There are options now. Oh, I know, I caused a stir. You might want to get on the microphone now and say something just to calm them down. Even this guy's like, turn it on, turn it on.
Got my mic.
So, think about that. Think about that. Don't raise your hand, Gillis. Don't raise your hand if you did it wrong. But think about it. Your students at your school, if you have at least one student at your school that's not zoned, that attends your school on a waiver or some other, whatever the other options are in your county, they're not zoned. Students do not have to go to your school. If you have private schools in your community, if you have charter schools in your community, your students do not have to go to your school. So your middle school students, you cannot go and recruit them. You cannot go and speak to them about your sport before they're your students. This guy says it's blatant recruiting. I think he did it. Okay?
Brunson.
When can you, Russell?
Brunson.
Brunson. Okay. All right, so when can you speak to them? When can you speak to them? That bottom portion on the red. Let me finish and then I'll let Justin come up.
You're doing fine.
I'm doing fine. He doesn't want any of the hot seat right now.
But
All right.
you may want to try to get him to calm down a little bit first.
Well, I'm going to let the sergeant at arms, Mr. Cahill, do it. That's all I had to say is his name. Wow. Good job, Ms. Jackson, wherever she is. When can you speak to a student? Only during the summer period as defined in Policy 20, and once a student has registered and been accepted and no longer attends a previous school, may you have contact for athletics. That's when you can speak.
I do have a question. We have students, our students have already registered. So they're in 8th grade, they've already registered at our school. They filled out a registration form. So they've expressed intent by filling out that registration form for our schools. Are they not been able to talk to them?
talk to them and say, what is that?
Well, you know, about our summer programs, we all do that, we go over to the middle schools.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay.
That's actually a really, really good question. Let me explain how that works. And because he's the athletic director, that's a perfect question coming from an athletic director. Okay? If it came from a coach, it would be a little bit different. But from the athletic director. You can't hear me? Okay, I'll step over here. I'll step back. Gillis, you were supposed to tell me. Sleeping on the job. All right, so Coach Hicks said, what about for those students, for example, when you go and register your middle school students, can you not tell them about your middle school program? High school program, thank you. High school program. This is the answer to that. As a county, it needs to be a county policy, county guideline, county determination about how you're going to do it. You can have your athletic directors, we wouldn't suggest your coaches, but you can have your athletic directors go over to your middle schools during that registration period when your guidance counselors go.
Our athletic directors are our head football coaches.
Oh,
Does
Lord.
that matter?
All right, well, let me finish saying this and I'll let you decide that. Really? All of you are head football coaches? Wow. Okay. That's cool. That's cool. My husband's a coach. All right, so I'll let you decide and I'll tell you what the answer is. This is our guidance because we don't technically have a policy on it, but this is our guidance and what we've told people and even what we will send out when it comes to middle schools, going to speak to middle schools about your athletic programs. Speaking about your athletic program, at what point is it crossing the line? That would be the question. At what point is it crossing the line? The point of you promoting your program over another program is crossing the line. However, if you're giving factual information, and what I mean by factual information, Coach Brunson, is if you say, this is the EL2, EL3 forms. This is our website. You can look on this website and you can look for updates regarding when we're going to have summer conditioning or whatever it is that we do. If you have any other further questions, feel free to contact our administration. It's very basic, it's very factual. Do you have to have EL2, EL3, EL3CH? Yes. Do you have a website they can find more information on? Yes. And that's why I said as a county, you decide exactly how you want to proceed with your athletic director / football coach going to the middle school. And it should be something that's offered to every high school. So every high school has this, hold on a second, mister. Every high school has the same opportunity and every high school has the same speech. But going over to a middle school and giving your information, you can do that when your guidance counselors go and register kids. It's just making sure you don't cross the line. And if that kid asks you a question about, because they're so excited, they're 13, they're 12. Oh my God, I play quarterback. You have a spot for me? You got to make sure your answer is, hey kid, well, I'm excited for you too. Here's our information. You can follow up on our website and that'll give you more information about the football program for the summertime. It needs to be very generic, very basic, not leading at all. He's 13, he's 12. Anything that you say will lead him.
And let me just say to all the coaches here, today's information day. We're going to get all this information. Mr. Johnson, myself, all the athletic directors, Mr. Humphrey, we're going to schedule a meeting in about a month to review all this information and so that we're all on the same page. So I know it's a lot right now, but we're going to make sure we know the rules. We're going to make sure we follow the rules, and we're all going to be on the same page. And so if we're all doing the same thing, then we all have an equal footing.
How do you want me to handle questions? It's totally up to you. I can take them, we have a question, that's why I asked. He looks
go ahead and take one question, and if there's any more, write your questions down, and we'll go from, because we do have a time frame.
Okay, yes, sir.
All right, my name's Harrison Straley, and I'm a tennis coach. But at the same time, I'm a tennis coach at a local tennis club. So if I have kids that are coming over and taking lessons from me, or I run a junior clinic, I'm getting the impression that I can't coach.
No, didn't say that at all.
Because I'm having contact with kids that are gonna be from different schools as well as from different, districts and that sort of thing.
And that's fine. That's fine. So,
How do I protect myself and my school?
okay, so let me rephrase your question. So Mr. Gillis, who I think fell asleep on us, can hear him and his friends. Okay. Mr. Harris? Straley. Sorry. Coach Straley. He's a tennis coach. And he's also a pro. His question is, how can he remain as a pro at his tennis club or wherever he's a pro at and coach at his high school? Yep. At his high school. How can he remain as both? Mr. Harrison's going to bring this up, and this is something we're going to discuss later today.
Well, then we can wait. That's okay.
You sure?
We can discuss it later.
We are going to discuss it later.
Then that's fine. I don't want to delay things.
Okay. Well, just remember it for this afternoon because we're going to discuss the policies.
So that we're kind of write your questions down, and if they're not answered, submit them, and we'll get you an answer.
I want his question.
Okay.
If he's gonna
Coach
decide,
Hatton?
I'll take his question.
Okay.
What you're talking about right now pertains to, when you talk about middle school kids,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why it would be impermissible to talk to those kids is if there was a kid that was not zoned for your school, maybe a kid there on waivers. But if there wasn't a kid there on waivers, we wouldn't have an issue with the coach talking to that group of kids, correct? Wouldn't be recruiting. They're zoned for our school, from what I just heard.
Which high school are you at?
Baker High School. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about
Oh, that's funny. Hey, you know what though? That's actually what I do when a parent calls me and they don't like my answer and then they ask for my name. I give somebody else's name in my office. And I'm like, I'm Denarvis Thornton. Okay, at Crestview High School. All right. His question is, if there are kids at the middle school that are zoned to your school, can you have...
There's nobody on waivers.
Nobody on waivers that are zoned.
Nobody on this. That's probably not the case, but...
Yeah, well, this will be the issue. This will be the issue. Let me ask you this, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Humphrey, and Mr. K. I can't remember his name, but I remember the K on the badge. How many private schools and charter schools do you have in town?
At least
Three.
in our county.
In your county? Three. 3 private schools, three charter schools. How many high schools?
Public high school.
Public.
We've got 4 that are strictly high schools. We have 2 K-12 schools.
Okay. How many magnet schools? Like as far as when they have a program, like a magnet program of IB or ACE or, I don't know, culinary, we have them. Do you have any?
We don't have any magnet schools. All of our high schools have programs.
And do you have to apply to those programs to get in?
No, you just, you apply for an attendance waiver to the principal of that school.
Okay. You apply for an attendance waiver to the principal of that school, and the principal signs off and allows you to go to that school.
Correct.
And then you can be in that program.
Correct.
Okay. So to answer your question a little more directly, and the reason I asked that because I wanted to kind of understand the geographic, layout a little more. To answer that question, you have 3 kids have 4 high schools, 3 options for public or charter, private or charter, I'm sorry. So that's 7 high schools.
I believe we only have one, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I think we only have one private high school, and that's Rocky Bayou. All the others end at 8th grade. Liza Jackson ends at 8th grade, and St. Mary's ends at 8th grade. So,
Collegiate.
Calvary Christian.
What's collegiate?
So
What's collegiate?
they have no athletic program, and so they can play at their home zone school.
So 1. So you have Rocky Bayou. Rocky Bayou. Okay. So now I understand a little better. So you have Rocky Bayou, and then you have 4 public high schools. 6 with the K through 12. So 6 and then Rocky Bayou, so you have 7 schools, 7 high schools in the county?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. 7 high schools in the county. So this is the challenge. This is the challenge. And I don't know, I know my school district, Alachua County. But in your school district, if a student, let's say they're zoned to Baker School. They're zoned to Baker School. If at any point, they have the option to attend one of those 6 other schools, that's when you have to be careful about what you say. That's when the improper contact can come into play. That's when you go over and you give that presentation to your middle school students, your presentation needs to be generic. And then not only that, not only attending the schools in your county, I don't know how close you are to another county that they can go and attend a school there. Another high school, like, 10 miles down the road, you're into the next county kind of thing. If that's an option as well, then yes, you cannot go to the middle school and say more than just whatever your generic script is as a county. Simply because they don't have to come to your school. They don't have to. They can go to one of the 6 other high schools or cross the county lines and go to one of the county high schools, the public high schools or private high schools in the county next over. So that's when you're going over to the middle school, whatever your conversation is or whatever it is that you're saying to your middle school students that may come, not necessarily will, that's when you got to sit down and you got to make sure whatever you say, it doesn't lead. It doesn't lead them, it doesn't entice them, it doesn't encourage them to attend your school because you're the football coach, athletic director, or whatever it is. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Did I answer that correctly, Coach Hicks?
Yeah, the Narvis told me it's really illegal to recruit your own kids.
Because they don't have to go to your school, and that's why.
That's correct.
Yeah. Coach Hicks is on it, guys. It is illegal to recruit your own kids. He knows the rules. That's my buddy. Okay? All right, so now let's go back to this situation. Give me a few more minutes and then I'll bring Justin up. I know I'm extending my time. I got up here and I got excited. I got a room full of people. In my office, I just get people calling me on the phone. All right, so at what point, what do you say if a student or a parent approaches you and it's about athletics? Coach Gillis, you still with me? No? Okay. How come you don't stand for me like you do for Miss Jackson? Thank you. Thank you, Coach Gillis. All right. So what do you say to a student that's interested in your school but doesn't attend your school? You have a kid that comes to you and says, I want to be the next quarterback at your school. What do you say to them? Yell it out. Go ahead and yell it out. Let's make this interactive. What do you say?
Go to guidance.
Go to guidance. Oh, all right. Somebody over here has had coffee. Go to guidance. Now, hey, I got a question for you, guy with the fatigue shirt on. Or what is it? Coach Kendrick. Coach Kendrick. I got a question for you, Coach Kendrick. Do you just say go to guidance or do you walk them to guidance?
Tell them to go to guidance, you do not walk them.
Okay. If you were listening to the story earlier, there's a reason why you do not walk them. Okay? There's a reason why you do not walk them, but you say go to guidance. It's just like if you had a band kid that came in and said, hey, I want to be the next trumpet player. Would you sit down and say, well, tell me about your interest in trumpets? You wouldn't do that. You would say, okay, go to guidance. Go to guidance. Very simple, very direct answer. If it's during the school year, they're not attending your school, go see the administrator, go to guidance. Okay? All right. So, impermissible benefit. Impermissible benefit. Thank you, Sergeant at Arms, whomever that was. This is the next one that a lot of people get in trouble about because you're not aware of what it is. An impermissible benefit. An impermissible benefit is something real simple. It's very simple. It's probably even simpler than improper contact. Because improper contact, you got to know when you can talk to them, when you can't, what can you say, what can't you say. Impermissible benefit is pretty simple. It's the benefit that you're providing to one student that everybody else doesn't get the benefit of having. Whatever that is. That's why recruiting is considered an impermissible benefit. You recruited this one kid, but you forgot about all 60 other kids or 42 other kids. An impermissible benefit. That is a violation of the recruiting policy. An impermissible benefit. So that one kid, let me tell you a story. Now I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to tell it anyways because I like to see you all get excited. This is a story that I'm sure you all will go over transportation earlier, but I'll tell you a story about a kid that received an impermissible benefit. Now, we were at an appeal. It was in section 3, so it wasn't up this way. We were at an appeal, and the little girl had transferred. She was a basketball player. She was a stud. I'll give her that. She was crossing over kids like crazy. She was a stud. And she had transferred to another school within the same school district, okay? Another school within the same school district. And the appeals committee, is asking her, why did you transfer? Doing all the natural, the standard questions of tell us your story, yada, yada, yada. So they came to, well, why did you transfer? And she said, well, I'm transferring to my home zone school. Oh, okay. So you had a waiver or something like that before? She says, yes. And they said, well, why weren't you attending your home zone school in the first place? Oh, well, because I was, I wanted to go over to that school and I wanted to play basketball. So I was going over to that school. Okay, well, what's the issue? And she says, well, why? And they said, why can't you stay at the old school? Why are you transferring now? Why can't you stay at your old school that you had the waiver at? And she says, because I can't get a ride to the school. What would be your question after she said that? How did you get to the school, right? How did you get to the school when you were over there? And she says, my coach took me. I said, what? That's what really makes you just stop and just put your head down and shake, because you know it's going downhill. And we really wanted the girl to be eligible. It was just going down. And I said, oh, okay. Your coach took you. What do you mean your coach took you? Well, he would come to my house. He would pick me up every day, take me to school. Then after practice, he would take me home. Oh, okay. So let me just ask you this. Let me just throw this one out here at you. If your coach hadn't taken you to school every day, could you have gone to that school? Oh, no. No. Oh, how many other kids he took home? It was just me. Only reason I can go to that school is because he could take me to school and take me home every day. But he's not there anymore. He left. So I got to go back to my zone school now because my mama can't take me to school. And, what's the issue? Some of you are looking at me like, what's the problem? That's the problem. The issue is she was receiving an impermissible benefit. The only way she got to this school every day and home from practice every day is because her coach, who was not a relative and was a man, which is odd, who was not a relative, took her to school and took her home every day. That's the only way she can go to that school. That's an impermissible benefit. Nobody else was receiving the same benefit. The administration didn't even know she was receiving that benefit. That's an impermissible benefit and is for athletic purposes solely and only. Uh-oh. I told you I was going to get some conversation. Okay? So an impermissible benefit. That's when you give it to one kid and one kid only. And it's for athletic purposes. Not the whole team, but just to one kid and one kid only for athletic purposes. Okay? Now, what can you do? As an athletic director, as a coach, what exactly can you do as far as in educating your ADs, your coaches, your parents, your students about what impermissible benefits are, about what recruiting is, about what improper contact is? Because a lot of times, improper contact may not come by way of you. It may come by way of one of your parents because they're helping you out and they're helping out your program. And because they're an athletic representative of your school, Bylaw 1.4.18, because they're an athletic representative of your school can be sanctioned because of their attempt to recruit other students that don't attend your school. You have to know that. If I can't stress anything else, you have to know that your parents and your students and your business partners, if they're representatives of your school, if you do not educate them on what recruiting is, and they go out and recruit, because you didn't do it, but they recruit on behalf of you or your school, then you're in violation of the policy, which is $2,500. Y'all, my county didn't have that kind of money at all. That's $2,500 because your parent went out and tried to get you another pitcher. It's $2,500 because your parent tried to go get you a quarterback and said, hey, I'll make sure you get to and from. Just come on over and play for us. So you have to understand the severity of recruiting. It is a major violation within the Florida High School Athletic Association. It's not something we take lightly. Now, at times, it may be harder for us to approve recruiting, but improper contact and impermissible benefits, on the other hand, that's not so difficult to verify. And they all have the same standard, $2,500. So understand your parents, your students, your business partners. If they don't understand and you haven't educated them on what recruiting is, they can get you in trouble. They can get you in trouble. Yes, they can. Okay? I think it's Justin's turn now. I have some more stuff to say later, of course. But it's Justin's turn. Justin's going to come up and speak about some athletic operations information.
Good morning again, everybody. Just kind of hang out with us. I'm just going to kind of run through some things. Kind of you see the difference there. We have athletics and we have our compliance type stuff. When you get to athletics, I oversee that whole area, and what it is, that's more of, again, the actual games themselves, issues that occur, playoffs, and so forth. First thing I'll discuss, if I've spoken to you before, probably, unfortunately, is having to deal with stuff like this. One of the things I directly oversee is our sportsmanship, bylaw, and policy. And one thing I'll say is I want to give kudos to everyone here that every time I heard Ms. Strappy say bylaw 9, policy 36, I saw a lot of pens being picked up and writing that policy down. We have a habit whenever we speak to kind of say policy 30, bylaw 7, because we're trying to get in a habit of getting you as coaches to look in this book. Again, we understand that this book is extremely thick. If you ask me, I've been on staff for, this will be my, at the end of this year will be 7 full years. Do I know everything in this book? Absolutely not. Do we expect you to know everything in this book? We expect you to be familiar with everything in this book. There's definitely some very important stuff in this book, but we also keep, every time we talk, we say policy 30. So jot those down, go to those so you make sure you know where to find those. So when you have some spare time, you can pull it up to look at it. All right, sportsmanship issues. That's unfortunate. You always hear about the bad stuff, okay? Whenever a kid or a coach gets thrown out of a game, all right, there's different types of penalties, okay? What I will say this before we get into the penalties, I want to give kudos to everyone in this room because there's 240,000 student athletes in the state of Florida, okay? We averaged the last few years about 1,000 student athletes to be thrown out. That's a very small percentage out of 240,000 kids from Pensacola to Key West. So as coaches, you're doing a terrific job. But I'm going to look at it on the flip side as well is, okay, if that 239,000 know how to react to, whether they're being held, whether they were fouled, whether they don't like the call the official made, if they can react a certain way, how do we get those 1,000 to react that same way? Because that's probably one of the hardest parts of the job that I have is to determine if a student athlete gets thrown out, saying that student athlete doesn't have the ability to play in the next 2 games or more severe depending. That's the hardest thing that I do day in and day out. Because again, they are kids, they are teenagers, they are going to make mistakes. But then again, there's also, like Ms. Strappy said in the beginning, there's a consequence for each action. And if we don't try to teach them, if you do this in your job, or you do this later on in life, there's going to be potentially something bad that's going to occur to you as well. So what I always like to do is when I get in front of a group is talk about some of the stuff I see day in and day out. Please know, as Ms. Strappy mentioned, I was a coach. I was also a student athlete. I didn't do everything perfect every single day. I had issues. I also broke some rules every now and again, not willingly. I also acted in an unsporting-like way as a coach occasionally as well, I admittedly so. So the things we're sharing today are just trying to help you so you can get with your kids to try to help them so they don't have to go through some of the stuff that some other kids have had to go through, that I also had to go through as a coach. For student athletes, two most common things. All right, we'll say about 75% of those 1,000 every year on average is dealing with foul words or a fighting or a striking type activity. It's 75% of it. What I hear what works the majority of the time is coaches instill some type of a rule in practice that you don't even allow the kids to use any kind of foul language, profane words, because you don't want them to develop that habit, because you don't want them to slip. You know, you don't want them to, you know, if they don't like to call the official, we're gonna go on the officials in a second, don't like to call the official, you know, instead of just saying, you know, blue, what'd you have, or referee, you know, what all you call on that, they'll throw in a foul word in there. Again, so whatever you can do to try to prevent that, that's highly encouraged, because again, that's one of the worst things that we have to deal with is the language in student athletes in games. You know, again, majority of them do not do it, but the ones who unfortunately do, there is a penalty assessed. And I'll go over the penalties in a second. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you know, if you go down the hallways every now and again, you know, like kids nowadays have changed. You know, it's more of an accepted thing where the language is being used more. It's casual language. Not only were Ms. Strappy and I were administrators at our school, athletic administrators, I was also a dean. So believe me, I'm all too familiar with, you know, the everyday casual talk. That doesn't mean it's right, so we're asking for your help on that. The fighting and striking, just like you do at your schools, there is no excuse for that. You know, the main thing is what I used to tell kids when I hear coaches tell kids, and I was on the phone with a parent the other day, matter of fact, you know, her kid unfortunately was thrown out, and she actually called to apologize for her son's behavior. By the way, that's the first time I ever had a parent call me and say they were sorry that her son got thrown out. This one, she said that's not what I teach the kid, and she said one of the best things I've heard that I used to say every now and again, I'm sure all you say it as well. No one's going to remember who's going to win a fight, quote, who wins a fight in 5 years, but if you're playing in that district championship game, you're going to know who's going to win the game. So if you feel as a student athlete you're being wronged by another player, the best thing to do, rather than fighting, is do your best to beat them on the scoreboard, because that'll last forever. And when she said that, it really sunk home to me. It made sense, because again, that's something that you'll be able to hold on to forever. And coaches, and again, speaking as a former coach, two things that'll get the coaches in trouble. We had about average about 200 by the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm going to be honest with you on this one, and again, this kind of ties into my next slide with the officials, is as a coach, there really is no excuse that we see to be thrown out, okay? Because as a coach, you are a leader of your program. Your kids are going to model your behavior. Your parents are going to model your behavior, okay? So, you know, as a coach, try to recall that, try to remember that. And again, dealing with officials, we're going to go over that in a second because that's the most common thing. But the worst thing that we see is trying to get the last word. By that I mean a coach will call me and he'll say, okay, well, the third inning I said this, and then he gave me a warning, the umpire gave me a warning. Fifth inning I said this, umpire, he gave me a warning. Sixth inning I came out to argue a call. And I said, you know what, you also missed the previous 2 calls. I don't care what you did on this one. You missed this one too. And the umpire game was nice. And this happened the other day. And the umpire said, Coach, that's it. This is what I saw. We don't agree, but this is what I saw, and that's all we need to talk about. I'm not going to change the call. It's what I saw. That's what I call. So then the coach started to walk away. And I'm trying to stay near the mic so you can hear me. But the coach started to walk away. Facing the dugout, didn't even face the umpire, and says, that is the worst call I've ever seen. Coach gets thrown out. Coach calls me and says, that's all I said? But I said, but the umpire, he gave you a chance to talk. I said, correct? He goes, yeah. I said, he actually gave you a few chances to talk. Correct. Then he said, okay, Coach, that's it. We're done. Correct, yeah. And he said, but I was on my way back to the dugout. Well, I was like, well, who is the comment directed to? I was just saying it out I was just saying it out like loud. I wasn't directed to the official. Okay. So again, I'm trying to walk through it. I said, okay. Well, I said, well, how about this? Who made the call? Well, the umpire did. Well, you said it was the worst call that you've ever seen. How could he think that was not a comment directed at him? He goes, well, I see what you're saying, but I still don't think it was directed at him. So me and his coach stayed on the phone for about another 20 minutes, half hour, and we eventually kind of agreed to it, which was a good thing. But again, that's one of the most common things that we see with coaches, and obviously the second one is a no-brainer. As a teacher, those of you who are also a teacher, you know, you're not going to use profane words to a kid in class, even though you may want to. We've all been there many, many times, but you're not going to do it to a kid in a classroom. So you shouldn't do it on the field as well when the student athletes are around. All right. In dealing with the levels real quick, and I know we got 10 minutes before we go into some other stuff. All right. There's different types of levels of penalties. Goes from a level 1, least severe, to level 4, your most severe for student athletes. Okay? Based on the incident, depending what it is how it's going to be determined. A level 1 penalty is your everyday normal penalty, your minor penalty, I will call it. Again, it's not acceptable, but it's minor. That's a kid going up to an official just saying it's a terrible call, worst thing I've ever seen, stuff like that. No like foul words or anything like that. All right, your level 2 penalties. 2 most common, like I mentioned. That's going to be your fighting and your use of foul words. Those bump up to a level 2 penalty. Think of it this way. If a kid had gotten a bad grade on an exam and he went up to the teacher and said, "You're the worst blanking teacher I've ever had," is that kid going to get suspended out of school? More than likely, yes. I would assume so. So, and again, you got to remember, they're suspended out of school for a certain amount of time, but school is a right. Athletics is a privilege, so athletics is going to be a little bit more severe because it's viewed as a privilege for them to be participating in athletics. All right, my level 3, just by a show of hands, who are my soccer coaches and who are my wrestling coaches? Hands up. Just to have your hand up, because I need your help on this one. Our level 3 penalties are your more severe penalties. A level 3 penalty can be up to a year. Okay? That is extremely, extremely severe. 2 most common. And it happens in the 2 of those sports, unfortunately. I'm not calling out one sport over another. But that's what we see, just providing facts. Soccer, see spitting. Spitting on somebody. In wrestling, a kid when he decides to actually bite somebody. And again, and it's one of those things where, had a long talk with a coach. And I'll say this with a coach. Well, he was getting him, the other kid was applying a rough crossface. Okay? As their upper and lower marks on the kid's arm. Well, yeah. Well, shouldn't it just be one? Or they'll say, well, the kid couldn't breathe. So if the kid's reaction to not breathe, wouldn't the kid call for an injury timeout if he could not breathe? And I know all the wrestling community, and I've taught this with the advisory committee over and over again. They say, well, absolutely not. We're not going to teach our kids that because that's sometimes used as, a method to stop the match where it is, to give the kid a break and all that kind of stuff. But here's our thought, and talking to the wrestling advisory committee as well. If a kid is struggling to breathe, that's deemed as a pretty severe act. We'd rather him call for an injury, or her, call for an injury timeout or something, as opposed to actually having to bite somebody. So those, I will say this, they don't happen too often, but unfortunately they do. Our last one is a level 4 penalty. This one is extremely severe, and fortunately it's only happened one time in my career with the state office. That is when a student athlete assaulted an official. Okay, obviously, don't need to spend a lot of time on that. It's happened once. Hopefully it will never occur again. Now, to official, because it's very, very closely related. Just by a show of hands, how many of you either are current official or have in the past? Very good. Very good. Tough job, huh? Absolutely. Okay. This is what I spend on the phone. I'm also over the officials. I spend hours, if I logged all my hours that I spend on the phone dealing with concerns about officials, I'd still be in the office today. I would not be able to come here. So I do want to take a few minutes, and I know we're getting ready to switch to the next part, but I want to encourage you. There's a way to improve the relationship with the officials. A lot of you had concerns. Former coach, same concerns. I feel sometimes the official is always calling against me. He misses every call that I see, and so forth. Open up that line of communication. If you have an issue, talk to those officials, okay? If you have an issue with an official during a game, this is the one thing I apologize for in front of every coach I speak to ever since I've been on staff, all right? The officials, as we know, are the authority of the game. You know, they have an authority, a responsibility that no one else has, meaning they have the ability to determine whether or not you as a coach or a student athlete stays in that game or has to leave, okay? So if you feel that the official is not acting in a professional manner, and I'll admit, it does happen, and there are penalties on the official side, but if you feel like you're not getting a fair shake or the official's treating you in an inappropriate way, meaning the official uses profanity towards you, all right, I apologize to the extent that I can't do anything then and there. You can call me on my cell phone, but we can't say, okay, Jimmy, as the official, we're going to pull you off this game. Without Jimmy on the game, we don't have a game anymore. Okay? But what we do, what I ask, what I plead, is do not react. It's harder to say than it is to do, I know. Again, I've also been there. Do not react. Follow up with our office the next day. Follow up with your athletic director the next day. They can call our office. We will gladly handle it. And the reason I say do not react, look at it from our end. Coach gets thrown out. Then the coach the next day calls us with the official said this. If you were us, could that look like a retaliatory type call? You know, it's a lot easier for us to deal with, and it has a whole lot more credence. And I'm not saying that we're not going to believe you, but then again, we have an official who had to deal with a coach because of this, and a coach who had to deal with an official because of this. You know, it's just a bad scenario to deal with. So bite your tongue. Let us know. We will help out with it. Now, on your end, what I will say is take a step back. Just see how you and your colleagues are treating the officials day in and day out. You know, you're riding the official in the first quarter. You're riding the official in the second quarter. Halftime, the official comes out of the locker room. He says something smart to you. You'd immediately freak out. He's not allowed to do that. But you've been doing the same thing a half hour earlier, but now when he finally loses his cool, which he should not or she should not, you immediately start to point the finger at them. Okay? And again, speaking as a former coach who unfortunately, embarrassingly, I was thrown out of a game, out of a high school game. Okay? So again, give the officials, try to give them somewhat of a break, because here's our issue. Right now, there's 8,300 officials here in the state of Florida for all sports. The number is going down each year. Okay? 2 reasons why we lose officials. One is just a fact of life, and that's age. You know, at some point, they're not going to be able to keep up with like the game. The second and probably most prevalent reason we hear is that the abuse that they receive. So again, just keep that in mind. Trying to change the culture here, because again, sports has a culture of you can play a full game, and there's a call at the end of the game that was wrong. Let's say the official didn't see it right or called the wrong call. we'd immediately put the result of the game on that one call when we don't look at other parts of the game where maybe our kid missed a shot, we turned the ball over, we struck out when we had some kids on base. You know, we have that culture where we automatically put it on that official. And again, hey, it's one call, you know, they should have got it right, agreed, and they'll also feel the same way. But again, they're also making hundreds of calls or non-calls game in and game out. So again, if they miss one, again, as a coach, I made plenty of mistakes. And the officials didn't like chew up me when I didn't put in the right kid to hit or I didn't put in the right kid to pitch. So again, just keeping that in front of you. All right. Perfect world, we wouldn't have that issue and we could get more and more officials out there. But again, there's an extreme concern about officials because we're not getting those younger folks into officiating. They just don't want to do it. To them, it's not worth the money and the time for what they have to do.